MyCore is on a mission to be the world's most people-centric company. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the core of people. I'm your host, Nathan Bourne, and I invite you to join me as we deep dive into the personal and professional lives of our guests. We're going to learn who they are, why they exist, and what they do. We're going to hear their stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In other words, we're going to talk to some really cool people. Welcome to the MyCore podcast. Good morning, good day, good afternoon. This is Nathan Bourne, your host here at the MyCore podcast, and I'm excited for this episode with Chad Dunn. What's up, Chad?
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I am excited to talk to you, and I know we just chatted a little bit before we kicked off officially in our recording, but you've got an amazing story, a dramatic story, a traumatic story, but you are just taking the cards life has dealt you and playing the game properly, and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Well, and like we were saying, that life is a game, but it depends on how you play it. The things that happen and the things that we were taught even growing up. So it's how you handle situations, because you're not going to win every day, and I always tell people it is a struggle. Life is a struggle. Success is a struggle. But as long as you're struggling in the right direction, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, and doing it with intention. Like if you're just on the struggle bus and there's no arc to that story, that's depressing. That's really depleting. But if you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, you can keep your mind on the possible and the potential and the positive. And you just strike me as somebody that's an optimist. Have you always been that way, or did something happen and you shifted, or have you always kind of looked for the good and seen the light?
No, I've always been that way. Fortunately, I've been able to get into different situations that most people wouldn't get into. But at the same time, going into these, I always had a vision and knowing that I could probably get out of it. I grew up racing BMX bikes. I grew up being an athlete. My dad was country, farmland in Durango, Colorado. My family, so hard work was always one of my things. Again, no drugs and no drinking, but in drinking, but it's hard work. But
Right.
if there's always a solution. There's always something, whether it be duct tape or baling wire, you can always fix something. Now I take to the new generation of myself, of doing different things. Again, I'm 51. I grew up in the 90s and 80s and, 70s. I've seen all this stuff happen in early 2000s. We thought Y2K was going to be the end of the world, right? And that was when a lot of my troubles were going down at that time, because I was at a crossroad between what I was going to do. We didn't know what was going to happen after the year 2000, right? So I was willing to gamble and take risks, but here we are today. 25
that's
years
interesting.
later.
So are you saying, because I was 11 years old during Y2K. I'm 37. I remember, maybe 12. So I remember it. I was old enough to remember it, but I was a boy, and we thought the world was going to shut down, or like elevators weren't going to work, or computers or airlines. So do you think that made you take more risk, or you had kind of like a effort mentality? Are you saying that? Because by the way, for our listeners, we've got a pretty interesting story here for Chad, and I'm gonna put this out because I know it's in your book, and it's a part of kind of the sensational part of your story, from convict to CEO. So my father is a correctional officer. And
I bless him dearly. I'm one of the guys that are very fortunate for the correction officers, because they help keep us in line. A lot of people, they talk shit about them, and different names, man-sitters and da-da-da-da-da. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that changed my life, help me, support me.
That's cool. He seems to have he has a real gifting for it. He's somebody that could have just as easily been on the other side of the bars, honestly. And I think because he treats them with respect and as humans, and I mean, I know your story isn't as heavy duty, but I mean, he's in like murderers, people that
Mm-hmm.
are there for life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so he speaks life into them, and
Sure.
he sees it as a bit of a calling and a ministry more
Yep.
than even just a job. But
Yeah.
he's also in the thick of it. Like he just had a fall recently from a guy that he was detaining, and my father's 60. He'll be 64 in February, so he's still like going strong. But I think he's rounding third base on whether he wants to keep going with it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so you've got a really powerful story, and I hate to
Yep.
make you do this again, but
No,
you
no,
were
Bible.
just telling me by way of tattoos on your
Yes.
body your
Yep.
story, and I just thought it was way cool. So a lot of our listeners do watch. We publish this on YouTube and on Spotify. It has visuals. So if you don't mind starting to dive into your story, maybe with the backdrop of your biceps,
Yeah.
bro. No diddy.
Yeah. So no, yeah. So hey, I
In
always
a
say too, no
prison.
D. Now, huh? Well, growing up an athlete, there was always, and we always ask, why are you an athlete? We ask people all day long, why are you an athlete? They say, well, because I like to compete. They say, well, can't you compete in life? Yeah, yes, I can. They say, well, maybe I like to win. Well, can't you win in life?
Mm.
I had one guy's name was Carrick Felix, played at ASU, played a little bit in the NBA, and he said, playing sports is the only thing that I can chase something that's positive. And that struck me because I took a look back on my life, and growing up as a BMX rider and extreme athlete, I chased dopamine, I chased adrenaline, I
Nice.
chased anything that could give me the life of the edge, whether it be going over big jumps or even playing football. I was just fearless for everything. But at the same time, my stature, I was in high school, I was 5'2", 125 pounds. I was getting my dick knocked in the dirt every day playing football. But I kept coming back because I was always a starter. I was always a winner, winning in BMX and winning in everything else. So my identity from an athlete started to change later in my high school years. And I still hung around the athletes and I still did things, but I was also partying. I was the guy having the parties before the games on Friday nights, and we were going out on the weekends, meeting at the Burger King or whatever it was. So I took a turn for that. But when I got injured my senior year in wrestling, I knew that I wanted to get into physical therapy. So I was one of the guys that went to college with a plan. Right? It wasn't that I was just going to go there and not know what I was going to do. Now, mind you, this is in 1996. Okay, so I graduated high school in '92.
Okay.
I went to college right off the bat '93. Started at ASU. I was studying exercise science and kinesiology. I love building things. My dad's a construction guy, so I was able to get into construction. But in Arizona, it's hot as shit outside. It's 120 degrees. It's 110 degrees every day, all day in the
Mm.
summertime. And I told him one day, I said, I think it was 127 degrees, the hottest day that we've ever had. I said, Dad, I'm not doing this anymore, man. I'm going inside. I'm getting a job where I can work around people, not sweaty men. I've got air conditioning and I'm good. He said, well, son, if I could tell you to use your brains and not your bronze, I did good. Right? So I went to ASU, uh, biomechanics. I'm building humans. I'm building humans. So it was the same thing, but now I'm building humans. So I love doing that. I got a job right away. I was in an affluent community in the Biltmore, Paradise Valley neighborhood, around great people, the who's who's of everybody. But at that time, uh, 19, 20 fake IDs, college stuff that you go into and everything else. I started going to the parties. I started going to the clubs. I started selling drugs. I started selling drugs to everybody so I could go down to South Phoenix in the hood, pick up score my drugs, whatever, and bring it to Paradise Valley, make money. So entertainment. I love entertainment. I love entertainment. And that's really what it was about. It wasn't about trying to commit crimes or it wasn't trying about being a bad person. It was part of the entertainment industry that I was in. I had the health and fitness on one side, I had the partying on the other side. So again, I got two jobs. I got two jobs. So I did that for a little while as we came up on, like I said, we came up on the year 2000 in 1998. And so I never thought that I would become a drug user. I thought I was just the dealer. The strip clubs, life of the strip clubs, life of the girls, the glitz, the glamour. One night I ended up smoking crack with a bunch of these people. Right. And sure enough, now I got the fix of that. I got the high of that. And I was like, shit, here we go. Right. So
And that's like from what my understanding, I have some, there's addiction in my family. I'm the fourth of 9 children, six
oh,
boys, 3 girls. And two of my brothers in particular have struggled. My father's an addict. So it's kind of lives and
hmm
lingers. I think because of that, I was like completely straight, narrow, like really almost to a overcorrection. I didn't even have my first sip of alcohol until my sophomore year of college. I was just like, kind of a control freak.
Sure.
But it's my understanding with a heavy duty drug like that's like an instant addiction, oftentimes with like crack and heroin and
Yeah, I never smoked weed. I never did that. I mean, I drank in high school to parties and things like that. Plus my family, like I said, my dad is drinking, so it was okay. We'd go to Mexico, Rocky Point, hey, have a drink or whatever. So I
yeah,
kind of saw that side. But, and again, we could call it maybe abuse or we could call it, use. My dad says, he's, again, country, you got to have a glass, something to warm you up when you go out in the morning.
right,
That's just part of their lifestyle, and it's,
totally,
he wouldn't say alcoholic and he wouldn't say that stuff. Now for me, on the other hand, now looking back, I don't drink. I haven't drank in 17 years. Right. So every day that I've done is clean. So when I went to college, it was like I said, the recreational drugs, some of the
right,
ecstasy, you're partying, you're hanging out and all that, selling the cocaine and doing whatnot, taking it to Paradise Valley. My nose was broken so many times from wrestling and doing things, that I could not snort cocaine because it would all fall out and it was a waste of it all. So
nice,
that was good for me because I never did until one day I found out that you could rock it up and then you could smoke it and go do whatever. And it was again these girls, they're highfalutin, the glitz, the
right.
glamours, or whatever. And so it's like maybe I'll do it. And I've had opportunities before to do it. I just never had until I let my guard down one night, right? And when I
That's
did,
interesting.
yep. And when I did, it was a high. I tell people right now, I love crack so much, I can't do it. Even to this day.
Right,
Yeah, I'm
right,
not going to say I'll never do it again. I'm not saying it's bad for you. I mean, which we all
yeah,
know these things. But my part of my recovery is that I love it so much. I'm honest with myself. I love it so much. I can't do that shit. You know.
yeah, dude.
And so it's just being real. It's about being real. So,
That's
you
really
know,
interesting. The like flirting with or playing with fire component. We talk a lot. High performance people understand you are the average of the people you surround yourself with, right? That
yep.
if you want to take your game to the next level, you want to take your leadership to the next level, you got to take inventory of who you're spending time with. And it's interesting to me that you were in that world, but not of it.
Mhm.
But then something happened that kind of you crossed over and you became of it.
It's a big vortex. It'll suck you in. you know,
Yeah.
because it's adrenaline again, getting chased by the cops in the neighborhood, being the white guy going down there and scoring the dope and you knowing that you're not supposed to be there. And I always kept myself clean. I would smoke crack. We played a full contact flag football league out here with all the guys from work and whatnot. I would smoke crack before I went to go play football games.
No
Right.
shit.
Yeah, they did that in the 70s. They were doing lines of cocaine in the NFL locker rooms, to give you jazzed up. So I thought, well,
Just to
shit,
get you like,
yeah, yeah, let's go do this, right? And so now I'm looking back like, how the fuck did you not even have a heart attack or something? So, playing on that edge, that's the adrenaline. That's the extreme person that was inside me. That was my behavior. And everything that I've done in my transformation is about changing my behavior. It is.
cool.
It's all about changing my behavior. You talked about optimism before. And again, I was the best drug dealer because I was very optimistic. I could get you whatever you needed. You know,
Right.
I would even front you the stuff because I was very optimistic that I know that you would pay me back because you're going to have to come get more. So that was me. That's my personality. That's just how I am. So it really helped me out even in that industry. I was very
No.
successful on that side. Even as the drug user, I was optimistic. Hey, I don't have the money now, but if you hook me up, I'll pay you tomorrow. I know I'll pay you tomorrow. Right. So again,
Interesting.
I can get into things, right? But at the same thing, I can get out. And I think the biggest thing, not knowing then, but knowing now, is that every situation I get into, I have an entry plan and I have an exit plan. Just subconsciously, it's in there. It's in there.
Yeah.
And that's part of my personality, opening up, move, and even writing this book and doing different things is that I always have a plan. And that goes back to chapter 10, you fail to plan to fail.
Yeah.
And I've always lived by that. Even Warren, my guy that I used to work with, my mentor, we have these cliches that we use, but I wasn't using them properly.
Mm,
Right. We hear them all
right.
the time, but are you really using those? Are you really accepting those? So that was really what happened like in the early 2000s, Now again, with Y2K, I remember specifically the night before, we had a whole bunch of drugs and we had a whole big party. There was a whole group of us and we're like, shit, we might not even live till tomorrow. You know what I mean? Let's go out with a bang. And that's kind of what you're talking about. Hell yeah, we're going to take chances, right? This might be the last time. Not good. Not good,
Good.
not good.
It's a
And
different kind of
so,
YOLO. Yeah.
exactamundo, and that whole environment and that section of my life was cut pretty quickly about a year after in about 2001. And I was at the bad of the bad. I was at the bottom of the bottom at that time of being a drug user. I had these guys in the back of my car. We were getting ready to go do a beer run. I was driving because I always had a car, right? Because my mom and dad, they love, your moms and dads are not going to let you get in trouble, so my parents did a lot of stuff. I was at their house. Shit, I was 35 before I moved out, just due to the fact it was always a home base for me to come back to.
Right.
I knew I had a shower. I knew my mom and dad would be there to love me, give me food, whatever it was. Yes, they knew about my behavior at that time. They weren't for it. But since I was over the age of 18 and I was an adult, they tried to call the cops on me many times. But the cops said, he's got to, you can either arrest him or you got to put him in rehab, but he has to put himself in rehab. You guys can't
Right.
do it. And they knew, and I told them, I said, rehab's not my problem. That's not my issue. I just got to get through some things. I got to do some things, and I'll be fine, right? Because we're all in control, allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Apparently. Yeah.
allegedly. Yeah, yeah. I thought I had it all in control, right? Which I did. I stopped selling drugs and I started using drugs. I was done with that, and I was scoring drugs a little bit here and there. But that was part of this whole dark era of my life. So I got out of there. I was taking these guys to go do a beer run. Long story short, Hispanics. I speak Spanish also, so they were in the back seat talking about they're going to cut my neck, slice my throat, steal my car, and then take off. And I understood that, them not knowing that I spoke Spanish. So I bought some time. I get to an area where I had to be. They jump out the car. They go in to go do a beer run, and I took off. I got out of there. I've never went back to the hood after that day. It was fear of
Wow.
my life. It was a fear of my life,
So that
right?
was your day of
That was my day of
disgust,
leaving.
decision. You were like,
Yep.
shit, this is not a game,
This
or it is, and I'm gonna lose.
Yeah, 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 and that was the choices, right? That was the choices. So at that point in time, I'm like, man, this shit is serious, and it was crazy because as I look back on it, that was my defining moment of being in that area. So I went back to my high school friends. I was hanging out with my high school friends. Now I'm selling water. I took a break from doing personal training and doing the therapy aspects of it all. The owner of a health club. Again, I got an exemplary employee as a young kid in the company. We need help getting my business up and running. I need you to come over here and do some sales for us at this water company. In Arizona, how hard is it to sell water? It's hot as shit. We all
Yeah.
thirsty. I thought, man, I landed this perfect sales job right here, which I did because I was able to go to the communities. I was able to sell these packages. I was able to do anything because, again, that's my personality, right? And,
Yeah.
and I
Right.
could hook up with everybody. So I did very good doing that. I'm hanging out with my high school friends. It just so happened a friend of mine went to Hawaii to install some cell phone antennas that they were doing, when the cell phones were coming around. He had a job over there. And these guys in Hawaii asked, hey, is there any way that you can get some drugs from the mainland and bring it over here to us in Hawaii? So there was a system that went on. It went on for a period of time, and at the very tail end of it, we needed to bring money back from Hawaii to come over here. Now, I had a job and I wasn't part of the transportation, the trafficking. I wasn't part of that. I was staying here locally. I was watching his house when he went to go do these missions and whatever. But at the tail end of it all, they asked me, they said, Chad, is there any way that you can go to Hawaii and bring back some money? I said, yeah, why not? I've seen my friends do it already. These are high school friends. They went over there. You get a week in Hawaii, hang out, bring back some money, you're good. Now, mind you, this is post 9/11. Okay. We did not have the x ray machines, but it's still post 9/11, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I asked my friend, my company I was working with a little bit. I asked my folks, I said, hey, do you mind if I go to Hawaii? They said, no, right? So I went to Hawaii, hung out over there, came back with money strapped to my body, in my shorts, dropped it off, and went about my business. I made it. Three
Right.
months later, I got the feds, I got the marshals, I got everybody knocking down my door. 7 o'clock in the morning, I would just got out of the shower. I looked out the window. I was at my parents' house. I see the SWAT team. I see the shields. I see the police officer. I see the cul-de-sac getting this just locked in, and here they come running. And my response at that time was, "Here they come." My mom just walked out of her bedroom. She said, "Who's coming?" I said, "The SWAT team." Oh shit, right? So that was the start of this big mission for me, right? I got arrested here. It was a federal case, so we had 52 people on my indictment. 49 were from Hawaii, and three of us were from Arizona, right? So they take us to go see the judge. The judge says no bail, right? You're looking at 25 years to life due to the magnitude of this ring, this drug ring. I was always bailed out before by my folks and my parents. So I knew that there's probably a possibility that I will be able to get out. So the judge says no bail. I made a couple calls to my family and said, "Hey, how do we handle this? How are we going to do this?" Right. Next thing you know, you good?
Alrighty, we were having a little technical difficulty. We're back. It's probably an appropriate time for the platform to mess up because it was like getting dramatic, the rising action. So
Dun,
take
dun,
us
dun,
back
dun.
to the moment that you, I think, are about to get in. It was like I'm gonna have to do an overlay of the cops music,
Yep.
like
Cops coming.
bad boys, what you gonna
Yep.
do?
Uh-huh.
Take us back.
So again, cops come to the house. I went to go see the judge, no bail. So I'm trying to figure this out of what's going to happen. So this is the first time I've ever been in a situation where I was
And
not able to get
let
out.
me get this real quick.
Sure.
Are you saying this was from the one trip, or did you do multiple trips and they were like monitoring you?
To be honest, that morning, the night before, there was some girls I had to go drop off. They called me up and they said, "Hey, by any chance, can you bring us over some drugs? I've got a guy here. I need to help out or whatever." So I said I could help him. I go to Mesa, Arizona, right in another city. I go over there. I drop off, and when I pull up to this hotel, I noticed there's some undercover. It looked like undercover cars in the parking lot, right? And so
Yeah.
I told these girls, I'm like, "What are you doing even calling me over here? I mean, this is a disastrous." So when I went home that night and I seen the cops coming in the morning, I thought it was for the deal that happened the night before,
Right.
right? So when they arrested them, when they threw me out the front door, they had me on the ground, guns to my heads, and marshals, everybody run, dogs getting ready to come in. I said, "What am I being arrested for?" They said, "Well, you have an arrest warrant. You have a warrant." Now, mind you, I was just getting off probation for DUIs, right? I said, "I haven't been in trouble. There's no way." And they said, "You have an arrest warrant out of Hawaii." And right then it was
Oh,
like,
shoot.
fuck, right? So yes, it was the one
Right.
time. Yes. Now there was multiple trips from other people going back and forth, but for me that was my one time that I was there. So, uh, man, this is a whole
Because you
new
were part
experience.
of a bigger sting, it sounds like you were
Yeah,
one of multiple
there was 52
big
of
case
us.
they were putting together.
Yes, and they knew. So now as the case unfolds over the time, right? So I was out on the streets. So I get arrested. I go to see the judge, try to see the judge in Phoenix, and next thing you know, the next day they put me on Con Air. So they take us all on a bus, these inmates in a holding center. They take us to Sky Harbor Airport. They put us on a federal owned Bureau of Prisons bus, airplane, and they fly us to Oklahoma City, where the major transfer center's at. So everybody's checked in there. It was Timothy McVeigh was there, the Unabomber. I got murders. I've got Ku Klux Klan. I've got everybody from the South, Confederates, the DC boys, the Southsiders from California. We're all there. And there was no segregation at this time. This is everybody's together. And I'm sitting here thinking like, man, I just got I got a money laundering, or we had other tribes that were there. But, these are real people. These are real people. So I was there for 2 weeks before they processed everything. And this is the land of the unknown. Right? I haven't seen a judge yet. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. All I know is I'm in for the time of my life right now. This was a trip I didn't want to take.
Right.
So still trying to figure out what's happening. Next thing you know, after 2 weeks, they load us back up on Con Air and they fly me to Riverside County, San Diego. So Riverside County is a holding facility that they have with the state inmates and also the federal inmates for anybody getting ready to go over to Guam, anybody getting to go over to Hawaii, or anybody having to go overseas getting extradited or whatnot. So I was at Riverside County for another couple weeks before. I was picked up by the marshals. Which I was in custody of them already, but the marshals picked me up. They took my co-defendant that was with me, drove us onto LA tarmacs. Right, we went right up to the United plane. We walked up the stairs to the plane before anybody else boarded it. We sat in the very back, and we each had a marshal sitting next to us in the seats, and we boarded my next flight to Hawaii.
That's just different kind of trip to Hawaii. Aloha,
Y-
man. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, mahalo, right? So. I had no idea, man. You know,
Wow.
this is a new experience for me. But at the time, I've been in bad situations. This is part of the crime that I've done. And I tell everybody right now, if you do
Yeah.
the crime, you're gonna have to do the time. It is what it is. Don't feel sorry for
Yeah.
yourself. We put ourselves in there. So I took that as my responsibility. This is what I'm here for. Now I hope I can get the fuck out of it though. You know, I
Right.
don't want
Right.
25 years to life. I don't have any idea. So when we got to Hawaii, obviously process booked everything else there. Now again, I could look out my window when I was in Hawaii because the in Oklahoma City when the plane landed, we drove right up to the federal detention center. We never touched ground. So there's a tunnel that the ramp, the air ramp that comes out that the inmates walk down. You're shackled from waist to hips to feet to everything else, and they process you in there. We never touched ground. So when I got to Hawaii, I noticed that there was a federal detention center that's on the Honolulu airport, proven airport grounds. So the bus, federal bus came over, picked us up, took us from the tarmac, and drove us over to the prison, the detention center over there. So it was almost like the same thing as as Oklahoma. But now I never knew that there was prisons on
Oh,
airport lands. So here I am sitting
right.
in my, yes, I'm sitting in my cell and I got the ocean. I can see the ocean outside my cell, right? So it's one of those things where
Oceanfront cellmate.
I got oceanfront property. Like I tell you, but I had oceanfront property. I had about 760 rooms. I had a security system. I had a cooking system. It wasn't that glamorous. It wasn't that glamorous. So, but it was an experiment. It was an experiment. So I was sitting in Oklahoma, or I mean, sitting in Hawaii for about 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks. Finally, I saw a judge, and the judge granted me $25,000 bail to get out. So my family was able to pay the bail. There was an issue of getting back because remember, when you get arrested, they take everything from you, right? And your license, everything.
Oh,
When I got to Oklahoma City, I had to donate my clothes if I wanted to go get a hot meal that night. So, I was in for a long run. So I donated my clothes. They dressed me out in the Federal Bureau of Prisons uniform, whatnot. So when I got released in Hawaii with my $25,000 bail, I had no ID to get back to the mainland. I had no money.
wow.
I had no nothing. So thankfully, I had a former idea of uh, expired ID that I had that was still valid though, just because I didn't get it punched or whatever. So my family was able to send it to my attorney. My attorney gave me like $50 to get to the airport, bought a ticket. I got released with a Z Cavarici shirt, a Tommy or a jeans and a Tommy Bahama shirt. It was an unbelievable journey, right? But long story short, I made it back to Arizona. Now it's time to
So
fight
what
my
year
case.
was that? What take me to
I
what
got I
year
got
that
arrested in
was?
2003. 2003, I got arrested. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So like I said, 2000s to
Wow. So okay, so you're
2001s.
back in the States.
Yep. So now I'm back in the States. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what I'm looking at. I just know I have terms and stipulations. You can't drink, you can't get in trouble, you can't do this, that, you can't do that, right? And plus checking in with I had daily drug tests. So now this is a big magnitude, and it was more about my family at this time. Like fuck, what am I gonna do? Because I'm a big family person. So my
Yeah.
buddy, he says, Chad, let's meet up and let's talk about this whole experience you just were on. I want to know what's happening. And he knows a lot of the characters that are in this story as well, right? He was just not one to get in
Right.
trouble. So I meet him at a bar in Tempe called the Dirty Drummer. Mind you, I'm not supposed to be drinking. Okay. But my lifestyle
Right.
is to be in entertainment situations, right? So we go to this bar, we sit down. It's a dive bar. I'm not worried about the cops coming in. I'm not worried about my probation officer coming in. It's time for me to tell my story. Maybe a little bit of braggadocious too about like, fuck, this,
Yeah.
this is, this
Right.
is a big thing. So I want to tell people what I just went through. So we sit down at the bar. This bartender comes up, and she says, "What can I get you guys to drink?" My buddy, he's a perfect icebreaker. The perfect wingman. You know what I mean? He's like, trying to shoot the shit with her. He's like, "Hey, well, what can I get you, sweetie?" She's like, "Don't fuck around like that. What can I get you guys to drink?" And she walked away. She's like, "I'll be back." So I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna marry this chick. I'm gonna marry this chick.
No
And he's like,
way.
yeah, yeah. And he's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, well, she's kind of badass. She had some tattoos. She wasn't blonde. She wasn't the Scottsdale type chick that I used to hang out with. Nice little
Yeah.
body, petite, everything else. So she came back up and I says, I kind of like your attitude. I'm going to marry you one day. And she told me to get in line, right? So I'm like, now I even like her more because now there's a challenge, right? There's a trial. Uh,
Right.
Her name was Jackie. Right? Her name was Jackie, right? The bartender. So now one thing about Jackie, she doesn't drink, right? She never drinks. She's the bartender that didn't drink, right? And so I asked her, I said, why don't you drink? She goes, because I got to serve jackasses like you all day long. And I'm like, okay, now this chick's got a backbone
Right.
even, right? But I'm thinking like I could hang out with somebody that doesn't drink. This might be what I needed, you know. Um, Mind you, I had 3 DUIs prior to all this, from high school or from college to everything else. So Lake Havasu, MTV Spring Break back in the day. We had the #1 boat was going there. We had everybody partying. So again, this is all driven by entertainment. It's all driven by entertainment. So I finally meet this girl. With my buddy and I, we talk about this thing. I'm trying to get a date with Jackie. She doesn't have it. She's preoccupied. Come to find out, she's got kids, right? Uh, I knew at this point in my life it might be too late for me to have my own. It might be a point for me just to be able to create a family already. I haven't never met these kids,
Right.
but I met her, and I'm like, this is somebody I think that could help me out. I really do think so. For 8 months, I went in there and was drinking at night times, playing pool, shooting the shit with all the people, and it's a dive bar. It's a local dive bar. Um,
Yeah.
but again, it's yeah. But again, it was about being with her. It was about being with her. I took chances by
Right.
drinking. Um, I shouldn't have, but I did. When I was on pretrial release, I
Right.
got 3 more DUIs on pretrial release. Okay, I pushed the buttons. I pushed the buttons. Right.
It's that
Um,
thrill, right? You
it
just
is.
you live on the edge in that way.
I do. I do. And I knew I was doing wrong at this time, but like, I don't know if, I mean, I'm fucked already. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I was facing a
Right.
lot of time from what they were saying. And I did risk it by doing this. So long story short, after 8 months, there was some situations, there was a unruly guy in the bar. I stayed late, because I always stayed to help Jackie close up just in case something happened. Even though she's a
Yeah.
tough cookie, she's from New Jersey, so she's got a little Jersey. She's Italian.
Right.
I am not worried about her
Yeah.
protect herself. She's feisty as shit. You know what I mean? So I wasn't worried about that, but it was more just to be there for her, and to comfort her a little bit. There was a guy that was unruly. She kicked him out of the bar. He came back, fired a gun into the air one night. And it was just situations. I've been in that situation, so again, I'm here to protect her too, type deal.
You didn't
Um,
flinch. Yeah. You were like,
yeah. Yeah, it's like okay, and I'm not a tough guy. I'm not a bad guy, but anytime like I walked outside to confront this guy, and I had my hands in my pocket, and she's looking at me. She's like, "Chad, what the fuck are you doing? You got your hands in your pocket. What if this guy hits you or whatever?" I'm like, "Well, then it'll be on." But like, I'm not gonna entice nothing. I don't. That's not me. I'm here to diffuse the
right.
situation. I always say, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm not a hostile guy. I'm not a knucklehead. That's just part of my personality. That's who I am. So. Um,
Yeah.
After 8 months, I finally got a date with her. Right, we went out early morning breakfast one day. We went over, had breakfast. She sat in my car afterwards, and I said, "You know what? Check this out. This is who I am." And I gave her my indictment, and she read my indictment right
No.
after that. Don't ask me why, but I had my indictment. I carried it in my car just in case I had to have paperwork on me or whatever it was. So
Yeah.
I gave it to her, and she looked at me and she says, "You know what? People make mistakes." And I'm
Mm.
like, this chick's straightened up right here. I think I could see this. I think I could see myself with her, right? So I fought my case. I fought it for a year and a half on the streets. Okay, I got sentenced in 2006, 2005. And in 2005, 2006, I got sentenced. I got sentenced to 30 months in prison. Okay, so I went to the judge. Back and forth. I was with Jackie at this time, right? Knowing that I'm probably going to have to go away. Her kids loved me, you know. Everything was great. It was just a sad situation for me because now I got to leave, and I don't know if I'm ever going to see her again, you know.
Right.
So with the DUIs that I got on my tail end of my federal pretrial, I put myself in tough situations. I had to get sentenced in both. I had a state case and I had a federal case at the same time. My last DUI, I was coming home from the Arturo Gatti Floyd Mayweather fight. I love watching boxing. We were playing quarters with 151, shit faced, right? Um, I don't know what happened, but I ran into something on the freeway. I see sparks, and my truck kind of messed up a little bit, I guess I should say. I was able to get off the
Right.
freeway, get into a neighborhood. The whole right side, passenger side of my truck was just melted. Now I know that I drifted over and I hit a concrete barrier. That's really one of the only times in my DUIs that I got that I felt like I was really a danger to somebody. Everything else was
Right.
just bad luck. Everything else was bad luck. But that night changed my life. That's the last time that I drank and drove. That's really the last time I drank. Right.
Really?
I'm sitting there. The cops show up in the neighborhood. They say, Chad, what happened to your, or they say, excuse me, what happened to your truck? I said, well, it looks to me like it got a flat tire, right? Little smart ass remark. They asked me if I was driving. I said no, because I was on a suspended license for a DUI. I couldn't drive at that time, but I did have a work permit, right? Again, I was pushing the buttons. I was coming home from
Yeah.
work the day before. I really was. But again, I stopped off and I had to watch the fight and whatever. So, um, I tried to call Jackie on my way home that night. She said, "Jackass, you called me at 3:30 in the morning. I was done with work. I'm sorry, I didn't know what time it was. I was incoherent, right?" She didn't hear from me the next day. So she knew something must have happened, right? And something did happen. I got arrested that night. So when I had to fight my case at the tail end of it all, I had a felony case for the states for driving on a suspended driver's license and getting another DUI. I had my felony for the federal case for money laundering and racketeering, everything else that they had on that side. So when I went to Hawaii, my father flew over there with me. I got sentenced to 30 months in prison. That was on Wednesday morning. I jumped on the plane Wednesday night. I landed in Phoenix and I went to my state case to get sentenced to 8 months in prison to run concurrent with my federal case the next day because I couldn't have a prior felony in one or I was going to get with harder charges on the other side. So I was able to finagle them. Again, this is the lifestyle that I was living. The more chaotic it is, the more that
Right.
I'm gonna work. So I got it all together. I had to serve my time concurrent. I got 30 months in prison. I was able to self surrender in Phoenix so I could be closer to my family and to be closer to Jackie and the kids. That night
Wow.
after my sentencing, I went home to my parents' house. She stayed the night with me. We had a nice little steak dinner, whatever not. We woke up in the morning and she drove me downtown to the federal building, parked curbside. She said, "Here you go." I gave her a kiss. I said, "I love you." And I said, "I hope I'll see you in 30 months."
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. I put myself in
Is
different
Jackie your
positions.
now wife?
Jackie is my now wife. Yep. We've been married. We've been married 17 years. We've been together for 21. Now, mind
Wow,
you,
dude.
as this story unfolds, I get sent to prison. She comes and sees me, right? I thought I'd be talking to my girlfriend or my loved one behind glass. But when you got sentenced,
Right.
I'm in there. I'm in a holding tank with what your dad would be doing. I'm in there with the murders. We had 38 of us in the tank. It wasn't solitary. This is the feds. It's a holding cell. I mean, I had people from the streets coming in. It was rough. So I had to talk to her because we had no contact rules. We had to speak behind the glasses. So I was sentenced to a
Wow.
low security prison. So again, a lot of white collar crimes, a lot of drug crimes that was out there. I did have murders that were there, but they've had good behavior. They've been in there for the Unabomber, or not the Unabomber, but the postal guy going postal is like 1976. The term going postal, you
Yeah.
go crazy. He was in there with me, but
Yeah.
he's been in prison for like 40 years. He's got life in prison,
Right.
right? So he's not violent anymore because he's done everything. So I was in there with a whole bunch of different. It's Fed system's a lot different than the states. Jackie
Right.
would come up to see me. She'd bring the kids. The last 8 months, I guess it was, and it was hard for her, and it was hard for me too. I would see the kids leave. I would see her leave.
Yeah.
But it became really hard for her because she didn't like to see me in that position. And she told me about 8 months. I was supposed to get released to her about 8 months before I was getting ready to be released. She said, "Chad, I don't think I can do this anymore."
Mm.
She said, "It's hard. I didn't put myself in there. I have my life to live. I have these kids to take care of. It takes
Right.
me 4 hours to come see you. It takes me 4 hours to come home. Uh, this is it's hard. It's hard. And the
Yeah.
last thing you want to have is a Dear John letter inside there. You don't want to know what's happening. So at that point in time, we choose to cut off all ties. I never talked to her. And so I spent my last
Wow.
part of being incarceration, uh, really doing a lot of soul searching. With Jackie or without Jackie, man, I had to do this myself. I knew there could be a
Yeah.
possibility. I stayed in contact with her mom and dad because her mom and dad, I called them all the time. Um, Everything I do is strategic. My every move is a calculated step. We'll get to that. I
Right.
contacted her mom and dad, and I stayed with her mom and dad just so that I had some hope when I did get out. You know, um, come release day, I
Played the
served
long
my
game.
yeah,
Yeah.
I served my 28 months in there. I met some great friends. One of my buddies to this day is one of my best friends. He served 19 and a half years. He's currently living in Huntington Beach. He's 11%
Wow.
over in a company. He's turned his life around. He's done a great job. I got my buddy Lance that's out here that's kind of done some things. And so I've got 8 of us that have not gone back. So that recidivism rate, I didn't want to be the statistic to go back. I wanted to be the
Right.
statistic to stay out. So getting released was the tough thing. I wanted my life with
Mm.
Jackie and the kids, but we were no longer talking. I did a lot of soul
Right.
searching. I had some plans myself. My buddies that I used to work with, they said, Chad, you have your job back. As soon as you get out, first day back, you got a job, which is very key because as an inmate, you have to have opportunity for employment. You have to.
Right.
Most inmates don't get that, and I was very fortunate to have that, which one of the things I want to do with my speaking in my book is I want to give hope to everybody, not just the inmates, but I want to give hope to the employers that, you know what, we made some mistakes in the
Yeah.
past, but, I'm on probation. I can't not drink. I cannot do drugs. I have to be gainfully
Right.
employed. I go to work every day sober, clear headed the next day. The guy in the
Right.
cubicle next to me could have been fucked up fighting with his wife the night before, drunk, whatever. My performance
Right.
of human performance in the workplace is going to be a lot better than the guys next to me. Unfortunately, I have a record he doesn't. And
Right.
that became a crossroad for me. A part of my career that I was doing. I went back to Rehab Plus. Doing physical therapy, doing sports training. The first day out of prison, when I got released, my mom and dad came and picked me up. I didn't want to be with my mom and dad. I wanted to be with Jackie you know but you
Right.
have to do what you have to do. And I got a great family. I do. I really do. I had a great family. People always ask me to do these podcasts. They said, how was your childhood? Did you have any trauma? I had zero trauma. I had zero trauma. So
Interesting.
I had a great family. But they were very understanding as well. They were very understanding. So I had 6 hours to get to the halfway house. So from prison, you go to a halfway house. Halfway house, you get to go home. So you have to spend a little bit of time in a halfway house. So I had 6 hours to get there in Phoenix. It only takes about 4 hours to get there. I had 2 hours to spare. So they said, "What do you want to do?" First thing out, what do you want to do? I said, "I want to go get a Mountain Dew. I'm dying for a Mountain Dew, right? I've been drinking water and shit inside there. I need
Right.
a big gulp Mountain Dew, man, something that's going to help me out." So they take me to 7-Eleven or Circle K. I get a big gulp, and they said, "Now what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to go see Jackie." Right?
I just imagine you fresh out, holding the big gulp, sipping it like a kid, going to see your girlfriend
Oh,
while you're
just
headed to
smile,
the
smile.
the
The first
halfway
couple
house,
steps of
right?
that, man, a Mountain Dews never taste so good, right? Never taste so
Oh,
good.
I bet it
And,
was electric.
yeah, and we had stuff inside there. I mean, obviously there's stuff you could buy and stuff, but it wasn't like going to the fountain and getting the ice, man, just a cold cup of it. The
Nah,
mountain we had Mountain Dew there, but I didn't have the crushed ice. I didn't have anything else in there. It's the little
right. The
things in
simple
life that we miss.
pleasures that you
It,
forget
it,
about. Yeah.
it is. It's those things that we miss, right? So we go to the bar where she's at, same place where we met. I walk
Really?
in. Yep, she's still working there. I walk into the door, and she's a daytime bartender because she, like I said, she had the kids, so she tried to be home with the kids every night. Very responsible
Yeah.
mother. She'll do everything for the kids. The kids are her life, even to this day. The kids are her life.
It's
So I walk
amazing.
in the door. It's very dark and grungy. She's got her back to me. She's at the grill cooking up a sandwich or food, whatever, for the customers. She turns around. She says, "Can I help you?" Right? Because it's the sun and everything else. And she just turns around and she looks up and she sees me. Right? And I finally see her. Smiles for miles. I didn't know how to react
Yeah.
though, right? And I didn't know how she was going to react because again, I haven't talked to her. So she put the food down. She came running up and she gave me a big hug. And just a
Wow.
feeling of love, right? Just a feeling of love right there. It was all that I needed. First time, besides my parents picking me up, that I had any physical contact. Obviously, even in the visitations, you couldn't do it. So she said, "Oh my
Right.
God, what are you doing?" I said, "I had to come and see you." She says, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I have to go to the halfway house." She said, "Can I come by there tonight?" And I said, I think you can." So I went and checked in at the halfway house. She came over later that night and brought me a cell phone, and we had a conversation sitting outside, just sitting outside reminiscing, I guess. But the cell phone that she
Yeah.
brought me, that was a token, I think, of our relationship to come. I had communication. It was a token of communication where I could call her at night times and hopefully start to get this relationship started again. So um, we started it off. Everything was good, bad. You've changed, I've changed. I've filtered her life. We're trying to build this. She says, I want to be married by the age of 30. I was 30 when I met her, and I think she was 25. I was 29 when I met her. She was 25, minus the 3 years. The time is coming. 2009, we got married. Right, in 2009, we got
Wow.
married, and here we are now in 2025. We've been married. We got a new grandson. We've created Move Human Performance Center together. We're business partners. We're life partners. We're each other's best friends. We're each other's soulmates. And she's the one that's helped start my and fuel my transformation for everything that I've done.
Wow, man, that is a cool story. That's an amazing. Yeah,
Yes,
you really do have a love story more than anything. It's a story of what a woman that supports you and calls you on your shit and says, "No, you need to sit for 8 months and look at yourself and not rely on me for your, identity or for your avoidance." I mean, that's powerful stuff, man.
it is. It is. And I sat there at nights. I was on the back of Graham County. It's a desolate area out in Safford, Arizona. And like I said, at the Feds, we had a softball field, we had a weightlifting pile. I still lifted weights. I took care of myself in there. I went to school.
Yeah.
We have Eastern Arizona Community College came in there, so I got out. I left there with an AA and masters associates in business marketing. So I did my time wisely. I worked every day that I was in there. But when I got done with work, I would go out and I'd sit on the concrete steps that were overlooking the softball field. I'd look into the desert at nighttime in the wintertime, the chilling days, and I thought about those harsh conditions, about how animals can survive, how's
Right.
the minute of the minute, it's survival out there. And so I knew that I was going to be able to survive. I've already survived the hood. I already survived the drugs. I've already survived all that stuff. One of my biggest changes, though, that happened is that when I got out, I was with Jackie. I had to go to some counseling classes. I had one more counseling class to go to. Through all the trouble I had with my DUIs and some different arrests I had prior, you had to go to counseling classes, alcohol classes or drug classes or whatever they were. And the first thing that they did when they did this evaluation is they said, well, you're an alcoholic, right? You have a drinking problem. And I never thought I had a drinking problem. I had an entertainment problem, you know. Looking back on it now, my actions, everything I did, they did come from drinking, which is why I don't drink anymore. But when I went to this guy, I had one class to go to. I was in there with the lady that was selling her kid for sex so she could go gamble. I was in there with a bunch of gambling addicts. I was in there with drug addicts. I was in there with prisoners that just got released. And this counselor came out, and he looked a little different than anybody before. He was short, red-haired guy, had a smile on his face, had some humor inside of him all. And he said, "You know what?" He said, "One thing you're not going to hear out here in this meeting at all today is you're never going to hear the word addiction. You're not a drug addict." He says, "You're not an alcoholic." He says, "What happens?" He says, "Y'all make bad choices. That's why you're here." And at that point in time, I thought, those labels that they put on my identity prior were all false. But I was believing them. I wasn't believing myself. So I was believing in myself. Now that, Chad, in order to make this transformation, you got to start making better choices. It's not about being addicted to alcohol. It's not about being addicted to crack because you've stopped all those things. You've had a clean slate when you were in prison. It's your choice to not ever use them or do them again and create this life that you want. So at that point in time, it became easy. It was choices, man. Life is simple. It's either yes or no, right?
Right.
I had to go against my DNA, like you talked about earlier. There might be some addiction stuff, or there might be some traits in our family for substance abuse or whatever. My parents thought it was okay. My dad thought it was okay to drink, but I had to go against my DNA and so no, say, Chad, no, it's not okay for you to drink. Right? My parents never did drugs, but I did. So guess what, Chad? Drugs is really not in your system, right? What is in your system is a hard worker, somebody that's going to show up for their family no matter what. And that's who you need to become. And so that's what I became. I went back to work. I started grinding. Jackie and I, we got married, supporting the kids, but I had more in me. I had growth.
Yeah.
I've already grown in 3 years, man. It's like I tell her my birthday came when I was released from prison. That's really what my birthday is. That's my new birthday when I became
Yeah.
this new person. It wasn't in 1974. It was in 2008.
Wow. Yeah, this rebirth. This is so fascinating. We talked about writing. The title of the book I'm writing is Lead with Who, and it is one of our core values. So for the past like decade, I've been grappling with this philosophy. I've been doing keynotes on it. I've obviously implemented it into my organization, and it's probably overdue, but at the right time, things come together and you kind of start to realize like this is the right time. So I've been for the past 2 or 3 weeks like entrenched in the writing, and I will probably need like another couple months because I'm doing it like very in a very focused way. I think I could crank it out. It's kind of one of those things where people would be like, "You wrote a book in 2 months." It's like, well, 37 years and then 2 months, right? So however long it took you to write your
Yep.
book, it's taken your whole story, your whole life, and then that much
Hmm.
time. And the basic premise is that we are who we are, right? And we get a certain amount of free will and choice, as you're sharing. There's also things that are just like in our nature, they're in our hard wiring. And I think that people that are effective and impactful find ways to harness and redirect. So if entertainment and the glitz and the glam and living on the edge and adrenaline and pushing limits and kind of working, your way and you're through a challenging, intricate, risky situation is there, you can try to deny all of that, or you can find a way to apply it to business, to performance, to things that are healthy and constructive and not harming others, that are win-wins, not win-losses. And it feels like, based on this story, that you are somebody who has never tried to deny who they are. It just took
Um,
what it took to get you to make the choices that were, I guess, positive, and not that everything prior to 2008 was negative, obviously. I mean, look at
sure.
the love that has come out of that and the relationships and the friendships and the skills. But it's kind of interesting to me that you're somebody that truly does lead with who. You had to go through a unique journey to get to where it was like probably more positive for your life and
Yeah.
for others. But it's cool, man, that you're like authentically you the whole time.
And I think the biggest thing as you write these books and as you go through your speakings and keynotes is that one thing about me is I was never a victim. I don't have the victim
Yeah,
mentality. I don't have the victim mentality. Everything I did, I put myself into that. So it's easy for me
yep,
to heal because I'm the one that's in charge of it all. But it takes some understanding. When I started writing my book, and I had to go back into history stuff, my DNA, when I have my ancestry.com, whatever, my mom and dad, they've done all that stuff. This goes back. My book starts off with my great 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 grandfather. He left Owensburg, Kentucky by horseback at the age of 13
wow.
across the country to Colorado to go search for gold. So I got some thrill seeking in my blood, right? And that dates way, way, way back.
Literally,
That dates way back. We're used to being out on your own. You're in the plains. You're doing stupid shit. Like riding a horse across country at the age of 13. But that's what they did back in the day for
bootlegging
some.
and yeah,
Yeah,
man.
that's what they did back in the day, right? So understanding that, my mom was able to share that with me. So I did put that at the beginning of my book because again, chapter one is your
Very
identity.
cool.
You have to know where you come from. That's history, right? And so now
Yes,
you take the goods of it, you take the bads of it. That's why I was the best drug dealer. That's why I was the best drug user because everything I do, I'm all in, just like my parents, my family would be. But
right,
now when you can refunnel and restructure what your value is, your purpose. When I was getting sentenced and I talked to the judge, on my sentencing speech, it says, you know what, all the remorse and everything that I had, but what my remorse went to is it went to the kids. It really did. It went to the kids because of the families that I ruined, the money that I took away from the family by the mom and dads buying drugs or whatever. And I didn't directly hurt them. It
right,
was just a whole conspiracy, everything else. But at that
right,
time, I
right.
said, you know what? I feel sorry for the kids because I saw my wife, my current wife, mother, single mother, kids. It's not the kids' faults. you know, and it wasn't my, I had I had great family, my parents and everything for me. It's for the kids. It's for the kids. Right. And so everything that I do when I got back to Rehab Plus and I started working, it was about giving back. It really was. It was about giving back with this new vision, a new optimistic mind that I've always had, but it was just more tunneled and more focused. I was at work for, I guess, 7, 8 years, doing everything. I got a case from the BMX, the whole circle of life. And I always talk about kind of the opening, the person behind move, was this guy, Eddie King. So he was a former BMX racer back in the day, pro. His brother has the track currently in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Eddie broke his back
Oh,
mountain biking up in Big Bear, broke T11, T12, was paralyzed. So it just was one of these things on Facebook. I reached out to him through Cambridge Medical and said, "Hey, Eddie, if you ever have a chance to come to Phoenix, man, I'd love to work with you." And so it was about 2010, 2011. He came in, he messaged me and he says, "Hey, I'm moving to Phoenix to be closer to my mom because of my injury. My wife, we're going to be trying, or my girlfriend, we're going to be relocating." They said, "Can we meet up?" He came in to move
wow.
in a wheelchair. I said, "Let's get to work." He said, "Perfect." On the back of his shirt, there was a word that said, "Believe." Right. The doctor told him, "You're never going to walk again." And Eddie says, "You don't know who you're working with. That's not even me."
Yeah.
Because I think he's right now, he's 59, maybe I'm 51, maybe 59. But back in the day, you're self-taught, right? Everything that you do, you're self-taught.
Right.
So working with Eddie, and seeing him make this comeback, it was good because it was helping me make my comeback. He was rehabilitating me just as much as I was rehabilitating him. At that point in time, I had a guy that came
So
in
cool.
from the burn unit. I had a therapist that was going to PT school, intern. She took a job at the Arizona burn unit, and we had a kid that was on fire for 2.5 minutes. 67, 70% burn of his body. So she said, "Chad, I have somebody I need you to work with. He needs to come with you and get a piece of your positivity and your optimism." Again, we use that word again, optimism. So I said, "Send Anthony in. I'd love to help him out." So how do you help out a burn guy? You put him next to a paralyzed guy because everything's relative, right? At least your ass can walk, you know. And so I had these two guys going. Yeah, my third one I had is it was I didn't know I had him at the time. His wife, I was training his wife, but he was a Phoenix Sheriff's member, a posse member out here for the sheriff's department. There was a robbery that went bad at the strip club around the street from our work. There was a chase that ensued with the suspects in the Phoenix PD. Uh, Long story short, a collision happened. The suspects got out and got the cop's gun. My buddy, Phil Grigg, he was a posse member. He got up to help the Phoenix police officer. And at that time, the suspect shot both of them point blank, one in the stomach, my buddy Phil, and the cop got shot in the hip. So after 7.5 months of being in the ICU, Phil got out and said, "I need to get back to work with you. I got to regain my body, Chad." So I put him next to Anthony and Eddie, my paralyzed and my burn guy. So those are my three wise men, right? And just seeing them take one step forward. Part of my recovery, like I said, what the word addiction is I've seen people in AA, I've seen people in NAs, I've been through the programs myself. And the reason why I don't really push those, and this is just me, the reason why I don't put those is because there's no 13th step. Everybody fails after the 12th step, right? They let their guard down. They tell you you have a disease in your body. If you have a disease, you're never going to be responsible for what it is that you do. When my counselor told me it was all about choices, I put two and two together and I said, "You know what? That is very true right there, right? You are going to have to do what you have to do." So that helped me get to where I needed to be. And I was jamming, I have a new life, I got to provide for my kids, my family. And I did it towards the tail end of my job over at Rehab Plus when I'm helping these guys out. I'm doing good things, but I didn't feel like I was being rewarded. I had a lot more to give. Like I said, I was reborn. So I came home a little bit negative a couple of days in a row. And my wife, she said, Chad, that's not you." And I said, "I know it's tough, but I got more I have to give." She says, "Well, why don't you start your own thing?" I said, "Well, what am I going to do about
Nice.
this? I mean, this is hard. I said, "What if I just go get another job? What if I go get another job?" So I applied for a company called Dynasplint, right, which is selling medical device. Remember, I'm a sales guy. I can sell drugs. I can sell
Yeah,
health. I
yeah,
can
yeah.
peddle whatever you need.
Every
So,
day
and I've
I'm
always,
hustling, hustling.
every day I'm hustling. Yep. So I thought and I've always wanted to sell medical stuff, whether it be pharmaceutical. I should have done pharmaceutical, not drugs, but
Right.
whatever. This was an opportunity for me to get into
Right.
sales. I passed every interview. They said, "You are our number one candidate." I did everything I needed to do. I had one more thing I had to go through, a background check.
Hmm.
I did the background check and they said, sorry, but we can't hire you. You're a convicted felon. Slap in the face, shutting the door. And
Ugh,
again, this is one of the things is that we have to have opportunities. Convicted felons, people that get released, if you have done your stuff, the system is there to rehabilitate you. So if we are rehabilitated, why are we not given the opportunity?
right.
I'm even to this day, I'm still trying to work with, and I've got a plan together. But us felons, and don't get me wrong, there are some crimes, that you should be held accountable for always. Murders,
Right.
sexual
Right.
assaults, any of those things. Those are certain crimes. But for such as things I had, the drugs and things that are in there that are really polluting our system with a lot of these people, why don't you give us a
Right.
second chance? You know,
Because
um,
the same, yeah, and I agree with that. Like the the hit that you're getting, the loop of reward that comes with a crime like that, you can find that constructively. You can find that in sales, you can find that in commission, you can find that in bonuses and recognition and travel, and there are certain crimes that are on another level, I mean,
sure.
it's interesting the redirect, like the fact that you can take those same tendencies, those same characteristics, and are kind of towing the line a bit. So at this stage in your life, being more mature, having gotten convicted to the point of like almost losing everything, from the love of your life to, obviously, you had a supportive family, but I mean that slowed you down enough to look at the man in the mirror and
Yep.
go, well, shit, I don't want to be back here, because it
No.
could be just as easily. I mean, that the statistics around people going back to jail, my father talks a lot about it. Just he sees them come back in, and it's just
67,
like
67% of the people that
57,
receive is, yep,
67,
67, 67, yep, 67. I
six
was in the
seven.
half,
Yeah.
I was in the halfway house and I had two kids that were there for 2 days. They went and robbed the bank and came running back. Next thing you know, we got the feds there. Like, what do you not learn, bro? Like, are you that idiotic? And again, that wasn't
Wow.
me, that wasn't me. So, um, you
Yep.
know, you got to have a plan. Like I said, I've always had a plan in, and I've always had a plan out. So in 2016, I decided we went to Colorado for Thanksgiving. I was there with my wife and my family. I talked with Jackie. She says, you know what? When you come back, you're going to do your own thing next year. So I started putting a plan together. I went out to look for angel and money, investment money, because I had an idea, I had a product, I had a plan. But I went to the bank to look for a loan, but they're not going to loan to convicted felons. So that was another issue. So I went to an angel investor, and he was a shark. And from the hustle game, I could see a shark right away. Like, you're out of your mind. I'm
Right.
not paying you this amount of interest for this. So my father, and my dad had his own business as well. In the '80s, he lost it all due to the fact of the economy, and so he's very, 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 he's very conservative. He don't like this. So he
Yep.
told me, he said, Chad, are
Risk
you willing?
averse.
Yeah, he's like, are you willing to risk everything? We lost our house. We moved out. I moved out to Arizona in a tent trailer. I lived in a tent trailer when I first moved out here at a KOA campground.
Wow.
Right. So I've seen the struggles, and we came from the campground. And my dad had to work to provide for my sister and my mom and I. And so I've seen that before. And I said, Dad, I'm willing to risk all that stuff, because failure's never in me. I'm going to succeed as a drug dealer, a drug user, an inmate. I'm going to succeed at whatever it is. Right. He said, but
Right.
how are you going to do this? I said, X, Y, and Z. If I could do this, he said, ifs don't make you no money. I says, but he said, buts don't make you no money. He said, how are you going to do this? I said, you show me, you
Yeah.
lend me the money and I'll show you. Right. So through conversations, through a lot of back and talks, and trying to get through his head and my head, he said, Chad, here's the deal. Your mom and I will help support you to get this up and running. But again, we're going to take care of this and you'll have to pay us back. Perfect. Right. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. Right. Now, mind you, in the past, I never paid him back for my attorney's fees or any of the other trouble stuff I had. So this is what the thing, it's risky for them as well. It really is risky for
Right.
them. But I have Jackie on my side, and she's like, I don't want nobody to take care of me, right? We'll make sure we pay them off. Perfect. That's my business partner,
Nice.
right? So I never thought I would leave my companies, but I went there at the beginning of 2017, and I said, fellas, I got to put my 2 week notice in. And they said, what are you
Yeah.
going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to go start my own thing. And it was one of my buddy Warren, who's my mentor. He said, Chadley, he says, you're going to be fine, man. You'll be fine at whatever you do.
Cool.
So put everything together. 2017, obviously, this move logo that we have, it's the handicap person in motion. but it's also an athlete in
Yeah.
motion. So I had a good branding person. So Move is very simple. When I was working with Eddie, it wasn't about getting him stronger. It wasn't about getting him more flexible. It was about just getting him moving, such as with Anthony,
Yeah.
my burn guy, and Phil. And even for me, it's about moving in the right direction, right? So the
I
company
love
called
that, Chad,
Move,
because it's physics. It's physics, right? An
it
object
is
in motion tends to stay in
stay
motion.
in motion. Yep. And that's what it was
Right.
about. I've got my one of my other mentors right now. He's 91 years old. He was the CEO of Honeywell. He's been a bigwig with them. His wife was the CEO of Estee Lauder. So during COVID, now mind you, in 2017, we opened up Move, well, a small business ran by a convicted felon. It's going to be hard to make 3 years in business. The statistics, again, are not on your side. 3 years into business, COVID hits. Shit. Now what do we do? Um, my business structure, business plan was a little different. I was the Uber for physical therapy. I'm not a physical therapist because I never made it. I was out partying. I never went to PT school, but
Right.
I was certified. I have all my certifications, so I have things that allow me to do this. But at that time, timing is everything. I just hired a physical therapist to work with me. So now we're an essential business. We got to stay open. I had players, basketball players. There's a guy, Troll Mario, who played for the University of Maryland, 7'2".
Oh, wow.
He's from Arizona. He came in to do his rehab. I had the University of Oregon offense comes in. I had TCU players. I had everybody from around the country that was injured that still needed rehab when the world shut down. But we didn't shut down because I've seen lockdowns in prison. I've seen people before that fear. I don't fear nothing. I told everybody
Right.
we're gonna hit this storm and we're gonna rise above, right? So
Nice.
2021 was our best year in business, right? The
Wow.
year after COVID. So again, timing is everything, but we never surrendered. Just like I did in prison, just like I did in life. It's one step at a
Awesome.
time, and that's what goes back to my mentor. He's he coached Mike Bibby and Richard Jefferson, a lot of the local NBA stars from here. And Art Dye is his name. He says, in order to become a good shooter, you have to start with one in a row, right? So my methodology for my change and for any transformation is one in a row. My program has 365 steps to it every day. I don't have 12 steps
Yeah.
because I don't fall off, right? And when you do
Right.
something one in a row, every day for me when I wake up is day one. Every day is day one.
Love that.
As long as every day is day one, you cannot fall backwards because at the end of the day, I know that I either made it. I never have a bad day. I might have bad moments. And my wife, before we started working together, she's like, "You're the only guy I know that doesn't have a bad day." No, because I'm going to make the best of it while I'm in prison, while I'm on the streets, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to make the best of it. There might be some bad moments, like my crack pipe
Right.
busted or I got busted by the cops or whatever it was. But I never make that never make my day because again, I'm optimistic about everything. So
Right.
here we are now in 2025. I wrote a book. It took me 18 months to write this book. Brainstorming, a lot of brain dumping, a lot of structures, a lot of outlines, a lot of Zoom meetings, and a lot of pen to paper.
Yeah.
My hardest part about it is just funneling everything so it's not a ramble, right? Because I have done a lot of stuff in my life.
Right.
I've been to different places that people haven't been. I've done things that most felons or convicted inmates have not done after. So how do
Right.
you structure that? So I put it together with 10 codes to transform your life. So every situation that I have is a new chapter. Every chapter is an important part of my recovery and of my life. And again, it starts with chapter one is your identity. That's the biggest thing. You have to know who you
Yeah.
are, you know. But
We
everybody
are
says
so
this is
aligned in that. I love it. I
yeah.
love it. It's so true.
Well, everybody says this is just who I am. That's not true. That's not true
Right.
because your identity is fluid. It's not fixed. It's going to change tomorrow.
Right.
Just because you
Yep.
get in trouble, that's not who you are. Or I always hear, well, that's just where I'm from. How about that one? That's in my DNA. That's just in my family. That's not true. You can change that stuff,
Yeah.
just like you've done, like you said
Totally.
with your brothers and sisters. And so for me, it all goes back to choices. It really does. So when I speak to people, I'm working with somebody, I can't make you do it. I cannot make you do it. But when you choose to do it, the success is going to be placed upon your shoulders, and the gratitude that you feel is just going to be a feeling of unbelief.
It's amazing. I love just the ride I've been on the last hour. Like I feel like I've been watching a Netflix show or something. I'm glad I got to hear it right from your mouth. I want to help our listeners find your book. Tell us where best to look it up. I know the title is fitting, and then let me know and let us know, like, just ways that we can connect with you to kind of keep watching this amazing story and journey unfold.
Yes. So the book is called Mind Over Virtually Everything. And the reason why that title is out, there's only two things that can stop you, and that's faith and nature, right? So really, when you put your mind in
Mm.
things, there's nothing that can stop you. When I talk about faith, people ask me about religion, and I put diet, politics, and religion into the same category. We all know what needs to be done. It's just a matter of doing it, right? So when I talk
Right.
about faith, it's the faith in yourself. It is. It's the
Yeah.
faith in yourself, the natural disasters, hurricanes, stuff like that. If you happen to be stuck in that, the nature aspect of it all, it was our time to go at that time. So those are really the only two things
Can't
that can
control
stop
that.
you. You can't control that. So,
Right.
I came up with Mind Over Virtually Everything. It's on Amazon platform. If you Google it, it pops up. It's on Barnes and Noble's online stores.
Awesome.
Mindovervirtuallyeverything.com is a website. It's my website. You can purchase it off of. But it came out on Amazon as the number one bestseller for 2 to 3 weeks. It was a top release that was
Wow.
out there. I've had nothing but great success from people that have read it. The timeliness of it, whether you're opening up a business or going through a struggle in life. As you know from writing this book, the first question that my people ask me, they say, "Well, who are you writing this book for, Chad?" And as we just went through, I just took you through a ride of my life. I've got a lot of people, whether it be an inmate, whether it be a user, whether it be a single mother, whether it be an inmate. I've got a lot of people that I was writing this book for. And when I sat down with them and I told them who I was writing this book for, they said, "Perfect, Chad, you're not going to sell it to anybody." And I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "When you write a book for everybody, you sell it to nobody. When you write that book for one person, you sell it to everyone." So my book is written for that one person. And we all have something inside it that is touching, And I've had people, males, females, kids, adults. It's a great book for young men to read because we can get sucked into this vortex really easily, the optimism you talk about is chapter 4 in my book. Is the glass overflow is it half empty or half full? And for me, I don't see things as half empty or half full. I see it as overflowing, right? Because it's overflowing with opportunity. It's over with opportunity. So, different chapters that are in there. There's different things, So, Amazon platform, it's available. Any of these online stores, it's available. And like I said, it's a great read. It's a great read.
I'm excited to read it. I'm gonna get a copy myself. I've got people in mind too that I think have similar backgrounds as you. That and my brother, he has been well, both of them. One's been sober 3 years, the other 5 years, and they're young guys. They're 32 and 43, and
Yep.
it's like, guys, in 10 years, look where Chad's been from where you are to, and they're doing great. I mean, they're doing awesome.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be encouraged and hear more stories like this, because a lot of times I think people think that maybe it's luck, right? Or that they were just dealt the right cards, or they weren't in the wrong environment. For you to have gone through and done it in a way, ironically, you were like sober through it. You were getting
Yeah.
fucked up, but you had a keen mind and were aware of the cause and effect and the risk. And I think back to the moment you were talking about when you were detained and arrested, and you didn't blame, you didn't act like, I can't believe this happened to me. You took extreme ownership the entire time and went, yeah, I knew the risk I was taking. I knew the
Sure.
dice I was rolling. So let's do this. We're going to close out, and I want you to show our listeners those tattoos. Run us through your tattoos,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're just so cool looking.
All right. So I'll do this. So the first one's uh, the game of life. Back in the day, you have a board game, the game of life. Life is not a game to play, even though they taught us that, right? If you do play a game, make sure that you play chess, don't play checkers.
So
Because
cool.
Tupac says, "My every move is a calculated step. You got to think before you do." Now, the new generation of all these kids, they're trying to play Monopoly. They're trying to play Monopoly. They're working for that $500 bill. There ain't no such thing as a $500 bill. If
That's
you do that, you're rolling the dice.
awesome.
If you roll the dice, just like the Monopoly houses, if they get knocked over, you get back up. Okay. If you were an inmate or ever an inmate, right, it's because Monopoly told you to take the chance card. Why didn't they have a choice card? Right.
Ah,
So those are my two arm ones. Now, when I go about the rest of it all, when we do all of this, let me see if I can get this here real quick.
Yeah, man. Oh, look at that. That's awesome, dude.
Never be a prisoner of the past,
Wow,
right?
man. That is cool.
Never be a prisoner of the past. And I always have the finish line that's in front of me. I'm not ever going to be there, right? I'm keeping moving. When I die and I'm in my casket, I'm looking up, the finish line is still going to be in front of me. They're going to say he was so close to get there. He almost made it. There is a road to success. It leads to your head. And remember, there's always that life at the end of the tunnel.
Dude,
Now,
that's
the
awesome.
Now, the hardest thing in life is you have to know which bridges to cross and which ones to burn. They always say never burn a bridge, right, in life, because you. But again, that's a cliche. For me, you have to know which bridges to cross and which ones to burn, right? And so my back here is Hawaii, and on the top of it says know which to burn and which ones to cross.
It's amazing,
And
man.
so I have the light that burned off fire. So that way now when I come back all the way around, you know, I never knew that my $1 million dreams would turn into federal nightmares.
Dude.
And for the recidivism rate here, it says believe only half of what you hear and all of what you see. It's the reverse for Edgar Allan Poe, right? So again, I wear my story, I wear my transformation on my body daily. So when people say, Chad, how are you going to do this? It's because I wear my story on me.
Literally, man. That is
Yeah.
so cool, dude.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
Thanks
the
for
best,
sharing that.
my favorite one, this is actually my wife's hand. So this is a hand in time where I'm leaving time and she's got her hand out. She says, honey, I got you.
Dude, that's amazing. To take
Yeah.
that entire story and put it on the canvas of your body. I mean, you must not have had any tattoos to be able to bring all of that in.
I had
Did you go from
zero.
not having them to having all of those, or did you cover up old ones?
I had zero tattoos when I was in prison. Right. My mom and dad
Wow.
are completely against. So even as a youth, I had none. My wife's got some tattoos. But when I got out, everyone said when I opened up Move, they said, "Are you going to put Move on your body?" And I said, "Well, I don't think that the Oakley guy's got an Oakley tattoo on his body, right?"
Right, right.
So I was listening, and the song from Tupac, "So Many Tears," came on, and it said, "My every move is a calculated step." So that was my first piece, right? And so then I kind of put everything together, and then the
And
whole
it
story
just,
just kind of blended together with all. So now, at the end of the day, you either got life or you got jail. It's two choices,
right, right,
right?
dude.
And then when I look in the mirror getting ready every day, in the mirror, this flips backwards. So if I am ever falling as a person and I can see the word choices, it's because I made the wrong choice.
Dude, that is so cool, man. Your
Yeah.
artists, if it, I don't know if it's multiple or one, but they
No,
nailed
it's
it.
one. All of my work's been done by one. His name's AG. Yeah, his name's Alex. He's out here in Phoenix. He's cool with all the realism and this is not
Yeah,
his style. This is not his style to do. But he's like, bro, you've got just a crazy story that you put together. So really,
yeah.
I've got two books. I've got the book on paper, and then I got the book on skin.
Literally, man.
Yeah,
Good for you,
yeah,
Chad. I'm so thankful for you sharing today and being able to spend this time with you. Let's keep connected, and I'm gonna just
yeah,
start
definitely.
really pushing your story. This is so cool.
Yeah, and for all the listeners that are out there in your audience, is that it's a power of one. It's a power of one day, and one choice. Yeah, either you're going to do it or you're not. There's no grace. It's either yes or no. And when you simplify it and you take it into your own life, like you said, what are your core values? What is your core? And the core is what you do daily. It really is. It's what you are inside. So, for everybody else, you can make the transformation. You just have to have a plan and understand that your identity is going to change daily. I'm a better person today than I was yesterday.
Amen.
Yeah,
That's some powerful stuff, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so
always.
much, and
Oh,
keep leading with who you are, man, and telling your story. Heck yeah,
that's it. One in a row, baby.
awesome. Much love.